Captain Charles Moore first discovered the largest accumulation of trash in the ocean 25 years ago, and it just keeps growing to the point of forming islands.
I don't know of anyone else who's actually navigated to an island made out of plastic trash.
Are species adapting to this new plastic habitat? Find out with me, Kate the Chemist, on my podcast, Seeking a Scientist, online at seekingascientist.org, made possible by the Stowers Institute.
Up to Date wants to know what you're talking about with family and friends. You can text UTD to 816-601-4777 to tell us. Again, 816-601-4777. Kansas City area lost one of its musical mainstays this week. Britt Adair, an anchor of the punk rock scene and founder of the band The Bad Ideas, the band we just heard, passed away Monday, apparently from a pulmonary embolism. She had worked for a number of years at Josie Records in the Crossroads. A lot of people are still reeling from Britt's passing. Here to talk about her are several people who knew her and worked with her. Falia Fanny is an award-winning journalist with a career spanning more than 20 years in media. She's a communication coordinator for the KU School of Music. Fally, nice to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Michelle Bacon is the content and database manager for 90.9 The Bridge. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Billy Guilfoyle is a drummer for multiple bands, including the Kellahans, Pornhuskers, and Muddy Mo, Surf Nationals. Billy, good to have you. Teresa Scott is a band member with Pamper the Madmen and the Utilitarians. Teresa, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Love.
Teresa, how big of a loss is this for not only the
man.
punk scene, but the music scene as a whole here?
Oh, Britt was, first of all, a badass. But the thing with Britt is she really didn't care what anyone thought of her. But in that freedom, right, was this capacity to care so much about everyone.
Yeah.
And she just was a joy, a light, and such a supporter for women that rocked. And she really did rock so hard.
Fally, how would you put it?
Well, you know, when you're a woman and you're really into punk rock, they kind of, it's not this case anymore, but it used to be you had to like kind of downplay your ladiness. And Britt was very unapologetically feminine. And she had the hot pink, like Chucks on all the time. And she was staggeringly tall, so you couldn't ignore her. And so she really kind of burst in with this presence that you couldn't, you know, turn your eyes away from. And it made it a lot easier for a lot more women to kind of come out and be confident in the punking music scene. Because like Teresa said, she didn't really care what she thought, but she was also so nice.
Michelle, how important was that for this community to have somebody like Britt Adair around to pave the way for so many women?
Oh, it was so important for women and girls and really a lot of punk bands, DIY, underground bands coming through Kansas City. You know, through her work with the Bad Ideas, they toured constantly for about, I think, 10 to 12 years. You know, they played dozens of shows. And when you log so many miles across the country, you make a lot of connections. And Britt made a lot of those connections, brought them to her summer camp fest that she organized a few years back. And those connections are just so essential to a lot of those DIY bands that are, you know, they just need more contacts in different cities. And that's huge, you know, just to have a community in a different city. And I think a lot of folks were able to find that here in Kansas City because of Britt.
Billy, I'm guessing that your bands and her band played together at any number of venues over the years. Tell me about her, Britt as a performer and how she connected with audiences.
Well, I'd say Britt was an integral part of the Kansas City punk rock scene. She reminded me, you know, of a female Joey Ramone, you know, and her guitar playing, to watch the Bad Ideas grow as a band over the years, and to watch Britt as a guitar player grow over the years. Her playing, it reminded me somewhat of East Bay Ray from the Dead Kennedys, but she was a ripper, you know. She really rocked, and she had us play at the basement of Josie's. I also play in the Utilitarians with Teresa here, and we played an in-store not very long ago, right? Last year, in the basement there. It was so much fun.
Yeah. I gather you sort of introduced Teresa to Britt, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think we all just kind of met, you know, in the Kansas City music scene. I mean, Britt has affected so many people, you know, like Michelle was just saying, nationwide. I've got people on Facebook from the different cities, Omaha, reeling, you know. We're all devastated here by this loss, and sudden, shocking loss.
Teresa, I imagine the news spread pretty quickly.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
How did it get around?
I would say we all texted one another.
Yeah, yeah. You know, reading about her, it just seems like and you guys have alluded to this already, she was just such a sweet person.
The sweetest. Just really, and I have to say her mom, Janet, who is her number one fan, I think. And I thank you, Janet, for bringing Britt to the world, because what a ray of sunshine. Is
that what you felt as you got to know her, just that sweetness and that she just connected with people so effectively?
Yes, really.
You know, Fally, I saw that Mark Manning, the host and producer of the Wednesday midday medley on KKFI, said she was a true punk musician, writing protest music and fighting for the equality of workers, women, and queer folks. How accurate is that?
That's pretty accurate. And I also work a lot with the Pride community and the LGBT community, and I kind of combine them with the music community a lot. And just kind of building on, you know, a lot of that, you know, came because she had support from her mother, Janet. I did a story on moms who support their children in live music in the local scene a few years ago. And, you know, Janet, she had this wonderful quote about Britt, where, if you don't mind me just kind of reading it real quick.
Yeah.
She says, it took me about 4 years to like her music. At that point, one of her punk friends shared that punk music can be political and make a statement. I like that idea. I was surprised that she was such a good guitar player. She's self-taught and she was born nice. She's way ahead of me when I was her age. I wasn't very responsible. Britt is very responsible. If she says she will do something, she sees it through. And a lot of friends and I in the punk scene, that's kind of what we talk about as the new punk, is like nice is the new punk, right? Like you can stand up for what's right and be political, but you also have this great sense of duty and support to your community. And, you know, Britt got that immediately, just came to her naturally, and her mom saw that from a very early age.
You know, Michelle, we do these conversations about folks who have passed with some regularity on this program, and it always seems to me like the most important people, the really great people, are the ones who seem to die too young. And do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, like Teresa was saying, a lot of folks were texting each other. I think I saw the news like at 2:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning, and I was in a lot of disbelief, just texting a few of my friends in the music scene. And, you know, as the news came down on Tuesday morning, it was just a flood. And you could just see, you know, just through the Facebook posts, how loved Britt was and how much she affected people, not only here in Kansas City, but across the country.
We'll be right back.
The federal charges against a former Kansas City, Kansas police detective are just a tiny piece of a decades-long story.
It's like gravity. Corruption doesn't start from the bottom and go up. It starts from the top and comes down.
And look at it now. See, karma. Now it's come back to bite them.
Hear the whole story on Overlooked, KCUR's award-winning investigative podcast. All episodes are out now.
Hey, how important, Michelle, do you think she was to the punk rock scene in Kansas City?
I think she was absolutely essential. You know, like I said, making all those connections through her band and bringing a lot of those folks here exposed a lot of us in Kansas City to bands we wouldn't have known about, and vice versa. And, you know, I think that the whole punk ethos, DIY ethos, is about making those connections, establishing that kind of community, and kind of just organizing through music and that whole idea of self-expression. And Britt really encapsulated that more than most folks in this town.
We're getting some tributes to her that are rolling into our email address. And Stephen Tolopana had this to say about Britt. Britt was a very special person with a charisma that was hyper cool and aloof and super silly and endearing at the same exact time. She pulled it off completely unknowingly. Her music was ferocious. She just did things she wanted to do and made things happen. I had and will continue to have so much respect for her. It truly is a great loss. And maybe this would be a good time to play some more music from the Bad Ideas. Mm-hmm. This track is I'm Stuck. Billy, I'm wondering if you could talk just for a little bit about the energy it takes to perform music like that night after night after night, because that's a whole different feel than a laid-back jazz riff or something. That's a different thing.
No, I think it's wonderful. Just pure energy, Steve. Pure energy.
Where do you get that from,
It's
Billy?
kind of like Britt, pure energy, you know. Well, you just got to rock on, Steve, you know. You got to rock, baby. It's time to rock.
Teresa, where do you get that energy from?
Well, Steve, I was born that way. But I suppose there's angst that comes out. You know, you got to work it out. You got to kind of rock it out. And we have a message, right? You can choose between love and fear. And Britt was fearless, man. And she just brought it, you know, and she was rocking out. And yeah, you're mad at all the injustice, you know, but really what you're bringing is this spirit of love for your bandmate, you know. That's Break It On who's singing, and she's amazing. And Matt and Joe, her bandmates, God bless them. How hard
said that so well.
To lose your
love you guys.
Your love, you know. Yeah. But it's still there. Vibrations. I mean, energy for real, forever. It's the truth.
Well, Michelle, you also had the privilege of knowing her. How did you meet, and what was your experience with Britt in the music scene?
You know, like Billy said, I think we all kind of just met each other through the scene, playing shows together. I'm also a musician, so our bands had played a few shows together, and working at the Bridge, I also wrote a couple articles about her, wrote an article about the touring side of things, how she ran the business of everything. And, you know, it's like, she was very professional, for one thing. You know, she booked all of the shows, she routed tours, she made connections in other towns, she made artwork for the shows. And, you know, as somebody that works with a lot of local musicians, you don't see that hustle in everybody. And Britt had it in spades, you know. Her energy, her positive energy, and her work ethic just shone through in everything she did. And you could see it on stage too.
You know, Fally, can you tell us a little bit about the punk scene in Kansas City? Because I've been told it's not as big as the jazz scene, but maybe just as important.
Well, so I actually work out of Lawrence. And so there was a time when a lot of like the Lawrence and punk scene, Kansas City punk scenes, they had a lot of crossover. And it's always been really fun and, you know, kind of have a positive tone to it. But the time era where I knew Britt the most and saw her the most, and of course this is like pre-pandemic, you know, it was just fun. Like, you really didn't care where you would play. You would just set up shop and do it. And, you know, there was this sense of like, all right, everybody's involved. And people, you know, they say, you know, everybody's talking about what a loving person she was and all the love she found in the world. She was also really fun and goofy. Like, she was just so damn tall. I'm tall, and she was taller than me. And there's another punk rocker who's taller than her, and we'd just be these beanstalks towering over everybody. and then you throw us all in the pit. Everyone got hurt. It was fun as heck. And so not only was she a good guitarist, but she was just leering over everybody like, yeah, I want to get in the pit. And so it was just like, you couldn't say no. Like, she was just so charmingly goofy. And what I think the first time I saw Bad Ideas play, because I loved Britt and the singer so much, I think I refer to them as like sugar, spice, and everything rotten, and that's just kind of how fun it was. So yeah, there's a lot of love, but it was just fun, and nobody cared what the outcome was because you were having fun.
Well, we've been remembering the life of Britt Adair, who passed this week, an anchor of the punk rock scene here in the Kansas City area. You just heard the voice of Fally Afani, an award-winning journalist. She works at the KU School of Music. Michelle Bacon is with 90.9 The Bridge. Billy Guilfoyle's with a whole bunch of bands as a drummer, plays with the Callahans and a lot of other groups. And Teresa Scott is with Pamper, the Madmen, and the Utilitarians. We're going to go out with one more clip here from Britt and the Bad Ideas. This is OCD. Thank you all for sharing your remembrances of her. We sure appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us, Steve.
Amen.
You bet.
Thanks, Steve.
Up to Date is produced by Zach Wilson, Reginald David, Elizabeth Ruiz, Zach Perez, and Hannah Cole. Our intern is Claudia Brancard. Our announcer and engineer is Paul Nakatura. Our theme music is composed and performed by the great Bobby Watson. I'm Steve Kraske. Thanks for listening.
Longevity researcher David Sinclair believes the first human to live to be 150 years old has already been born.
I believe it's possible now. Let's put it this way. We now know how to slow aging.
How will we age in the future? Find out with me, Kate the Chemist, on my podcast, Seeking a Scientist, from KCUR, made possible by the Stowers Institute.